Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Shrinking Season 2 comes out today, so I wanted to go back and look at Season 1, Episode 1, because it gives us a great example of how impactful our lives as therapists are in terms of our practice, and how important it is to have our boundaries in place.
It's late, isn't it?
It's 3 in the morning.
I'm sorry, that's awful. I'm awful. We're gonna keep it down. I'm gonna tell them, hey, we're gonna be quiet.
As a client, you don't expect your therapist to have a life outside. I mean, you understand they do, but you're not really focused on that, as you're not talking to your therapist about themselves. Whereas, I'm not saying that all therapists go into sessions being hungover or staying up too late or negating their responsibilities outside of the therapy room, but it's interesting to see how, in an extreme way, how the therapist is living his life, which doesn't always mean that he's following his own advice necessarily that he gives his clients. He's making mistakes too. We're all just human beings.
Just once, I want to make it through one whole day without someone aggressively trying to make my life harder.
This time it was my fault. I left my sunglasses at the store and he was like so mad we had to go back.
It's like I'm caught in this loop forever.
And that's why it's so important to make sure that as a therapist, you're on point. You're not feeling tired, you're not feeling stressed, because you're taking on all of your clients' stress and trying to help them through it. And sometimes it could be repetitive. They're making the same mistakes over and over again, hoping for you to fix them. It's not my job to fix my clients. It's my job to help them through the process of their compulsions, their habitual nature, and the way that they're living. But if you're already at a deficit because you're tired, stressed, hungover, how are you going to be there for your clients?
He just kept on going on and on about how dumb I am.
You're not dumb, Grace.
He said if it weren't for my great tits, no one would want to take care of me, so that's almost nice.
It's not nice.
I know, but he loves me.
Enough. Grace, we've been doing this for 2 years. 2 years of your life. I have never seen a guy tell a woman that she is dumb and lucky she has great tits and thought to myself, wow, they must really be in love. And he...
I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening because I was talking.
Neither do I.
Grace, your husband is emotionally abusive. He's not working on it. He doesn't intend to. He's made you think it's all you deserve. It's not.
But then...
Leave him or I'm done being your therapist.
Wow. That's so unethical. A therapist can't say that if you don't do the thing that I want you to do, then you can't see me as a therapist, because she's obviously going through something. And the real question there is, why is it that she's not prioritizing her needs, or why does she not see herself without him? But that's a whole different point, because he's being unethical based on him being so frustrated. He wants to see her self-actualized, and that's a beautiful thing, that he wants to see her feel better and her take control of her life. But he can't force her to do it. It's his job to be there and to guide her and help her. And you can see just how frustrated he is. And that frustration is maybe what she's feeling too, which is she wants something from her life and she can't get through that. She can't work it out. What I would say in that situation is, I feel frustrated because it seems that you're not getting what you want and you're expecting something to change, even though you're not willing to do something. And now that interpretation is me still being able to tell the client how I feel, but not exploding a fit of rage, expecting something to happen and giving this consequence of, I can't see you if you're still seeing him. And the way that we're all expecting therapists to act is just to be very quiet, to allow the client just to free associate and say what they want to say. And that doesn't work either, because if they do that, they stay stuck in that same rut, going over and over and over again, as she has for the last couple of years. And it's really tough, because a part of you wants to listen and give that client the space to understand their lives. But if you do that, they just keep repeating the same cycles. They need a sense of agency and for the client to suggest something new from their own perspective and point of view. So I'm glad the therapist said what he said, but maybe he did it in the wrong way.
How you doing? Normal, you know. It's a normal day. Doing it normal style. Hey, you know what I was thinking, Paul?
Is it about how you're just doing it normal style?
What? What are you thinking?
You guys ever get so mad at your patients that all of a sudden you just, well, like shake them.
Well, we don't shake them.
No, I know. I'm rooting for him. I am. I'm like, come on, you fucked up person. You can change. And then they just
It can be frustrating as a therapist because you're so invested in your clients' lives. You want to see them mature, self-actualize, and grow. It's so important to make sure that my sense of self isn't dictated to by a client acting in a way that's going to make them happy and proud.
Passion fatigue. We all hit those walls. You ask questions, you listen, you stay non-judgmental, and you don't make that face.
sorry. Look, we know what they should do. You know why? Because it's pretty fucking simple. I get sad when I do this thing. Maybe don't do that fucking thing. We know the answer.
That's rather reductive because they do that thing because it's the only option they feel that they have in their lives to feel good. So our brains are designed to go, I did this once and it worked. Therefore, I'm going to keep repeating that and hope that it works. So it's not just not doing it. We have to start to understand where that came from. And from there, start to build a new framework or way of relating to that situation and also feeling good.
Sean. Sorry, there's a lot of papers. Why don't we start by you telling me why you think you're here?
Bar fight, court ordered anger management, blah, blah, blah.
That was 3 blocks. What happened exactly?
I got into a couple bar fights. They called the police and...
No.
Just yawn. The fuck am I even doing here, man?
Okay, look, I was yawning.
This is a problem that many therapists have is that they get tired in sessions. We're seeing so many people, and if you're yawning, the client is obviously going to think that you're not interested in that story. But yet, you can see here he's tired, which again goes back to why he shouldn't have been up all night. He needs to make sure that he's there for the client. And because you're dealing with people's vulnerabilities, it's so important to make sure that you're there for the client because they're going to be dealing with stuff and never having said a lot of the stuff they're saying. So it's imperative that the client feels the warmth from their therapist. They don't want to feel like you're bored.
I'm glad you came back.
I didn't have a choice.
I want you to know, I'm normally very good at this. That should be off. I'm sorry. I have to take this.
Of course you fucking...
I mean, that's unbelievable. The fact that his phone goes off, okay, it's happened to us all as therapists. We forgot to put our phone on silent, but to actually take the call. And it's important to recognize that if you need to take a call as a therapist, you have to let the client know beforehand. It's this whole surprise that keeps on coming up, whether it's the yawn, whether it's the phone going off, whether it's him having to take the call. You have to let your clients know what's going on for you. And I'm so glad that he was able to be vulnerable with his client and say, usually I'm better than this. But it's just getting a little bit unprofessional now, which is why it's important to make sure that you've checked yourself so that, again, you can be there for your clients.
Grace, hi.
I did it. I left him. I'm at my sister's.
Well, I mean, also, just to stop again, he's taking a call from a client while he's got another client in the room. I mean, he needs to make sure that he has boundaries because boundaries are a massive part of the whole therapeutic process. You can't just call your therapist outside of those therapy sessions and expect them to answer your phone call and to be a support to you because then you become reliant on your therapist. So it's important to maintain those boundaries. If she needs another session, I understand. And that extra session needs to be discussed as to why do you need to see me more than once a week.
What the fuck am I doing here?
You trust me, Sean?
Fuck no.
Doesn't matter. I'm a psychological vigilante.
You a what?
Let's go find you someone to beat up.
Wait, what?
Wow. Lots of therapists take their clients on walk and talks or exposure therapy, taking them somewhere else outside of the therapy room in a safe, controlled manner in order to get an experience from it, which you can then go back to the therapy room and discuss. I've done it a couple of times myself. And from this, he can see that he's going to break that traditional cycle of sitting in a therapy space. But I'd say maybe it's worth thinking about talking it through first rather than just surprising the client. Because remember, his clients come to him saying that a switch goes off in his head and all of a sudden he gets angry. Taking the client sporadically out of the session isn't what I do, but it's important to understand that different types of therapy work for different people. And I think this exposure that the client has, okay, it could be handled in a different way, but it's important that he gets to use that anger in a productive way rather than using it to feel stifled and like it's out of his control.
Sean, I read your file. Your time overseas, it's filled with trauma and violence. All that violence is still inside you and it keeps finding ways to get out. What you resist persists. That's Carl Jung. I guess I figured if you could beat the crap out of somebody who's totally cool with it, maybe that'll stop you from kicking the shit out of anybody who breathes wrong in a bar someplace. It's alright. Then we'll start figuring out what's going on underneath all that.
You think this will work?
Definitely. Good. Or it'll make your bloodlust stronger and you'll become twice as dangerous. We'll just have to see.
The fuck?
Therapeutic connection. The way that the therapist and the client interact is the number one most important part of this process. Look, it's been a bit sporadic, right? Him being in a therapy space and then going straight out like that without any notice. But the fact that he's been able to forge a connection with his client is great, because now the work can begin. I think it's so important for us all to understand how therapy works, which is, let's just get rid of the symptom first and then work on what's going on underneath to make that symptom flare up over and over again. Because if he's angry all the time, he can't understand where this rage comes from. So you can't start to unpick it and change the way that you deal with that anger.
Listen, why aren't you answering my question?
Because the shit with Sean is so unethical that I feel like an accomplice just listening to you. So I'm gonna focus on my shit and not on whatever the fuck that is.
As a therapist, you need to understand how important and impactful your words are to a client. So if you say do something, they're gonna go and do it. Which is why you can't tell someone to do something, because if they do it and then they hurt themselves, someone else, or it doesn't work for them, that's on your back. It's important to understand the responsibility that you have. So this new attitude that this therapist has is great in terms of relieving some of his stress and burden, but what damage could it be doing to his clients? Okay, it's worked a couple of times, but is there a consequence which we haven't seen yet?
You should be excited for me. I do.
It's not about him. It's about his clients. He needs to make sure that he's self-assured and respects himself so that he can help people. It's not about him going, I did something risky and it may have worked this time, but you have to be happy for me. That's not the point of being a therapist. The point is, it's my job to make them happy, not their success means that I'm proud of myself.
I thought I told you to sit down.
I told you that if I sit down, I'm going to feel like I'm in trouble.
You are in trouble.
Paul, I think I can help people if I just get my hands a little dirtier.
Okay, be me for a second. Would you trust you?
You can see the different styles of therapy here, where you have the sort of newer therapist who wants to get his hands a little bit dirtier and go and have some exposure therapy in a more upfront way. Whereas you've got the old style therapist here, is it Paul, who says that, let's sit down, you need to stay in the therapy space, you can't move away from the classic style. And you can see how different therapists relate to their clients in different ways.
Every time I remember being happy, I get pissed because I see where I'm at now and I know that time is gone and I ain't getting it back.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
Fuck you.
Fuck me. My wife died.
Self-disclosure. Do you see there what happens? The focus was on the client, feeling out of sorts, not feeling in control of his life. Whereas by the therapist self-disclosing that his wife has died, all of a sudden you see the facial expression of the client. He's not allowed to live in that sense of frustration of how his life has turned out. All the focus now goes on the therapist, which gets in the way of the client's growth. You can't help but think that Jimmy is being selfish in this respect, because it's his priority to look after the client. Self-disclosure could be a good thing if used to highlight similarities, but just to put that wild card down of you don't know what you're dealing with just invalidates everything that the client is feeling.
You supposed to be telling me this shit?
Definitely not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And And that's the end of the episode. I hope you can see how important it is to be boundary with your clients. Not necessarily in just a therapy session and staying in the room, but if you do go out, letting them know what their responsibility is and always being vigilant to what's going on. You can see over and over again that the therapist is doing what he wants to do for him to feel that he's winning. And it's important to know how capable you are as a therapist, but also what the priority is, which is to make sure that your clients are in a strong position to move forward with their lives. Different therapists have different styles, and those should be celebrated because different clients will connect with therapists' style, behavior, attributes, their background, all different parts of them, which is the main cause of change from a client's point of view. If everyone was the same, you wouldn't get that personal touch, which leads to the growth, change, and also connection you have with a therapist, which is the number one reason why you grow in therapy. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Remember to like it and subscribe so you plenty more to come. Take care. Bye-bye.